Introduction. Bitcoin is a decentralized digital currency that enables instant payments to anyone, anywhere in the world. Unlike traditional currencies like US dollars or euros, Bitcoins are not physically minted or printed. Instead, they are produced digitally around the world using software that involves mathematical problems, a process that is called mining. Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency to begin trading. Bitcoin is an open source technology, meaning the source code of its software is available openly for anyone to see. Bitcoin continues to be developed collaboratively and in public. As a distributed network, Bitcoin does not rely on a central authority to manage transactions or to issue new currency. Bitcoins are directly passed between sender and receiver without the need for an intermediary, such as a bank or financial institution. Bitcoin provides a way for one internet user to transfer a digital asset, currency, to another internet user that is guaranteed to be safe and secure, publicly documented without personal information, and without risk of fraud. Bitcoin challenges the commonly held notion that currency must be controlled by a central government or authority, and that all transactions must pass through an intermediary of some kind. There are many risks and potential flaws associated with buying or using Bitcoin, but the idea of creating a new currency outside the control of a third party could present enormous opportunities. Bitcoin 101 is a Bitcoin guide providing an introduction to Bitcoin for beginners. Topics covered include: what is Bitcoin, the technology and the cryptocurrency, how to buy Bitcoins, Bitcoin mining and the Bitcoin wallet, Bitcoin investment, should I buy? Bitcoin market map and list of Bitcoin startups, list of other cryptocurrencies, and more. This book contains facts as well as opinions. It provides details on the technology behind Bitcoin and how to use it, along with some commentary on political philosophy. As of this publication, I do not own any Bitcoin. I am also not an investment advisor. This book is provided purely for entertainment purposes. Some of what is in this book is my personal opinion, and not purely factual data. About the author. Mike Fishbein is an entrepreneur in New York City, author of multiple books on entrepreneurship, and has advised both startups and Fortune 500 companies on customer development and new product innovation. Mike is the founder of stpcollege.com, an education technology company in New York City. With over 2,000 enrolled students, stpcollege.com's online courses help entrepreneurs start and grow their companies. Prior to stpcollege.com, Mike was a founding team member of Casual Corp, a venture studio and corporate innovation firm founded by an accomplished serial entrepreneur. While at Casual Corp, Mike served as a lead product manager in launching 3 new technology businesses. In addition, Mike advised some of the world's largest companies on new product innovation. Mike's expertise lies in customer development, lean product strategy, and customer acquisition. His writings on startup marketing and strategy have been published in Huffington Post, Entrepreneur, and more. Mike has been starting companies since he was a teenager and serves as a resource and advisor to startups in New York City and abroad. Mike is the author of other books. Number 1, Customer Development for Entrepreneurs, How to Test Startup Ideas and Build Products People Love. Number 2, Business Networking, How to Build an Awesome Professional Network. Number 3, Popping the Higher Education Bubble, How to Navigate the Impending Student Loan Crisis. Number 4, The Ultimate Guide to Blogging, What to Write About, How to Promote Your Blog, and How to Make Money Blogging. Number 5, Do More, Better, Faster, and Happier, How to Get More Energy, Increase Productivity, and Be Happy. Chapter 1. What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a decentralized digital currency that enables instant payments to anyone, anywhere in the world. Since its introduction in 2009, Bitcoin has grown steadily as an accepted method of payment for products and services. Unlike traditional currencies like US dollars or euros, Bitcoins are not physically minted or printed. Instead, they are produced digitally around the world using software that solves mathematical problems, a process that is called mining. Bitcoin is the first so-called cryptocurrency to begin trading. While other cryptocurrencies have since emerged, such as Litecoin and Dogecoin, Bitcoin remains the most used and most talked about cryptocurrency in circulation. As of mid-2004, Bitcoin has a market capitalization of approximately $5.5 billion US. To better understand Bitcoin, let's take a closer look at its key characteristics. Peer-to-peer. As a distributed network, Bitcoin does not rely on a central authority to manage transactions or to issue new currency. Bitcoins are directly passed between sender and receiver without the need for an intermediary, such as a bank or a financial institution. You might wonder how you could reliably send and receive money without the involvement of a trusted third party, and the answer lies in Bitcoin's peer-to-peer network. While Bitcoin does not rely on a single, central authority, it does have intermediaries in the form of computer servers running Bitcoin software, which collectively form a network that anyone can join. Any Bitcoin transaction you wish to make is broadcast to the network, validated, and then copied to a public ledger held across this network. Global accessibility. Unlike national currencies, Bitcoin is not controlled by any country. Bitcoins can be securely sent anytime and anywhere, regardless of the location of the receiver or sender. Some consider Bitcoin a formative international currency. Open source. Bitcoin is an open source technology, meaning the source code of its software is available openly for anyone to see. Bitcoin continues to be developed collaboratively and in public. Not only is the functioning of Bitcoin completely decentralized, no single person or institution owns or controls its design. This software development model is sometimes credited with providing increased security, as weaknesses and loopholes can be more readily detected and patched by a community of contributors. Open source software is not a new phenomenon and has long been a driving force in many areas of software development. For example, the popular Firefox web browser is based on an open source software, and so is the Linux operating system. Apache, the software that runs the majority of web servers in the world, is also open source. A programmer or group of programmers by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto published the original specifications for Bitcoin, though the true identity of its inventors remains a mystery. Today, Bitcoin is maintained by many software developers as part of an open source project. How are Bitcoins made? New Bitcoins are created through a publicly visible formula. They are produced at a decreasing rate until its supply approaches 21 million units in 2040. The control of Bitcoin's supply is one of its strong points. Producing at an automated pace ensures steady growth of the monetary supply without hyperinflation. The process of generating new Bitcoins is called mining. This term could perhaps lead some to imagine Bitcoins being physically extracted from the earth, but that is not the case, as Bitcoin is of course a digital currency. Mining is simply a term used for expanding computer processing power by solving mathematical equations to generate new Bitcoins. As more Bitcoins enter circulation, the complexity of the mathematical formula required to generate them increases. In the early days of Bitcoin, someone with a powerful enough PC could still cost-effectively mine Bitcoins, but mining is nowadays primarily the domain of companies using specialized and energy-efficient software. Usage of the term Bitcoin. Bitcoin is styled differently depending on its context. Bitcoin with a capital B refers to the system as a whole. The lowercase Bitcoin refers to the currency itself. The actual units of Bitcoin you can send or receive, Bitcoins. Bitcoin's currency code is BTC, and the commonly used currency symbol is a capital B with two vertical bars through it, similar to the symbol for the euro. Controversies over Bitcoin. The growth of Bitcoin has not been without some growing pains and criticisms. Bitcoin has become increasingly publicized, especially within the last year, and sometimes in a negative light. Below are some of the highly publicized events and controversies. Mt. Gox bankruptcy. Mt. Gox was for a long time one of the most prominent Bitcoin exchanges. In February 2014, it suspended withdrawals, citing technical issues. It soon filed for bankruptcy in Japan amid reports that 744,000 Bitcoins had been stolen from the firm. The collapse of Mt. Gox temporarily dented trust in exchanges. Sites like BitcoinExchangeGuide.com have since sprung up to evaluate and review the trustworthiness of Bitcoin exchanges. Later in this book, I will talk about what the bankruptcy of Mt. Gox means for the future of Bitcoin. Criminal activity. Bitcoin has been associated with criminal activity, including money laundering and making illegal purchases, which has attracted the attention of regulators and law enforcement agencies. A marketplace for illicit purchases that accepted Bitcoin called Silk Road was recently shut down by the U.S. authorities. Legal status. Bitcoins have been evaluated and treated in various ways around the world. In the U.S., the IRS classified Bitcoins as a capital asset subject to taxes on capital gains. A Texas court classified Bitcoins as a currency, while the Federal Election Commission declines to declare Bitcoin a currency, opting to deem the items of value. Internationally, countries have varyingly labeled Bitcoin a unit of account, a commodity. Few governments have yet moved to regulate Bitcoin or similar cryptocurrencies. Chapter 2. Advantages of Bitcoin. Traditional currency such as the US dollar has some drawbacks, most of which seem to be overlooked or taken for granted by most people. Bitcoin can solve some of these problems as well as offer improvements. Below are some of the advantages Bitcoin has over traditional currencies. Number 1. Decentralized. Bitcoin is a decentralized currency. No central entity regulates it or controls it. Not having a central entity means that the central entity can't inflate Bitcoin's price or devalue it by manipulating its supply. There is no risk of money printing by a government that could dilute your savings. Creation of Bitcoin happens at a stable rate and halves every 4 years, creating a limited supply of 21 million units. In addition, there is no single point of failure. If the US government were to fail, it could have harmful effects on the currency. Bitcoin was started and is growing without a central entity. It is a distributed network. If one part of the network were to fail or go offline, Bitcoin would keep working. Number 2. Free to transfer and hold. Remember, Bitcoin is not a company. It does not charge its customer to use the service. It is an open source technology. As such, Bitcoin is completely free to transfer and hold. The US dollar is controlled by financial institutions that often charge fees to transfer it. Some services have been built for Bitcoin that charge fees, but there is no obligation to use them. Bitcoin itself is free to transfer. Number 3. Privacy protection. On the one hand, Bitcoin is extremely transparent as the public ledger gives complete visibility into where transactions come from and where they are sent. On the other hand, no one knows who holds a particular Bitcoin address. If you do not wish to be identified, you can stay anonymous while using Bitcoin. Bitcoin has stronger privacy protections than something like PayPal. Bitcoin accounts are numbered, but have no personally identifiable information. Users can have multiple Bitcoin addresses, and they aren't connected to names, addresses, or other personally identifying information. If, for whatever reason, you don't want anyone to know about a transaction that you're making, Bitcoin might be a better option than, say, a check. I suspect the privacy protection is the reason why Bitcoin has been used to buy illegal drugs online, though that certainly is not the only use case. Number 4. Freedom to transact. Because Bitcoin does not have a controlling intermediary, there is more freedom to transact. With traditional currency, funds can be frozen or seized by an intermediary, such as PayPal, a bank, or a credit card company, or by the government. Intermediaries may also prohibit transactions for goods or services as they desire. If an intermediary decides they don't want to let you make a given transaction, they can stop it. Payments companies such as PayPal have been reported to have prohibited transaction involving sexual content. If you owned a porn company or adult toy business, you may not be able to use PayPal. Number 5. Easy to use. With traditional banks, it can be challenging and/or time-consuming to even open a bank account. Setting up merchant accounts for payment is even more complicated. A Bitcoin address can be set up very quickly and with no fees. Bitcoin is easy to send. Instead of filling out forms with your address, credit card number, etc., you simply send money to an electronic address. Number 6. Fast transfers. While traditional wire transfers can take a long time to process, sometimes even days, Bitcoin transactions can take just about 10 minutes to complete. You can send Bitcoin anywhere and it will arrive minutes later. As soon as the Bitcoin network processes the payment, it is transferred. Physical banks often have business hours and close on nights and weekends. Even PayPal has restrictions on amounts that can be withdrawn in a given month, which means you might have to wait for a month to actually receive the actual funds. Number 7. No chargeback risk. Bitcoin does not subject merchants to chargeback risk the way credit cards do. Once a Bitcoin is sent, it can't be retrieved unless the recipient returns them. Bitcoins, like cash, are irrevocable. Merchants don't have to worry providing a good or service only to have the customer void the credit card transaction. For some businesses, chargebacks can really eat into the profit margins. Number 8. Durable. Bitcoin cannot be destroyed or damaged. Supply of gold can be manipulated if more gold is found or if it is destroyed. Physical currency, cash, can be counterfeited or destroyed. Changes to supply result in changes in price. Number 9. Portable. Because Bitcoin is electronic, it is easy to store and carry. Gold is actually quite heavy and takes up a lot of physical space. Bitcoin can be stored on a portable credit card-sized device or simply online. It could be hard to carry around gold and use it for regular purchases. Number 10. Reduced fraud. Bitcoin eliminates the risk of credit card fraud. Criminals can steal personal customer information and credit card numbers and use it to make fraudulent purchases. Since Bitcoin is purely digital, the receiver of a payment does not see any information from the sender that could be used to steal the money from the sender in the future. That information could be taken by the payment receiver, merchant, or by a criminal who steals that information from the merchant. Credit card fraud can be a major expense for merchants and credit card processors. Some online merchants are forced to reject some purchases that fear could be fraudulent. Credit card processors and banks have spent money on fraud detection systems.
Not too big to fail. Why the collapse of Mt. Gox is good for Bitcoin. Mt. Gox, a Bitcoin exchange based in Japan, was launched in July 2010, and by 2013 was handling 70% of all Bitcoin transactions, according to Wall Street Journal. According to Wikipedia, in February of 2014, the Mt. Gox company suspended trading, closed its website and exchange service, and filed for a form of bankruptcy protection from creditors called Minji Sesai, or civil rehabilitation, to allow courts to seek a buyer. This caused concern within the Bitcoin community and ridicule from those outside the Bitcoin community. The customers of Mt. Gox lost money, and it made the Bitcoin infrastructure look inefficient. I believe that the exchange's failure is actually a good thing for Bitcoin and Bitcoin holders in the long term. Gox was not bailed out by the government. The Bitcoin currency will not be inflated to provide quantitative easing to keep Mt. Gox in business. Mt. Gox executives will not receive big bonuses paid by inflated Bitcoin and taxpayers, and those are all good things. Those are things that happened to U.S. banks when they did not serve their customers and were on the brink of failure. In a free market, a company must provide a product or service that is of value to customers in order to generate revenue or profit. If the customer does not perceive the product or service as being of value, she will not purchase it. The company cannot force the customer to pay for it. Instead, the customer could purchase a different product or service that is of value. In the example of a bank, when customers have options, they would choose superior bank, and inferior bank's assets would shrink or go out of business altogether. If the inferior bank was bailed out by a government or kept in business by some means other than revenue from customers, it becomes more difficult for superior bank to start and or stay in business. The result is inferior service for customers. In addition, if the bank was bailed out by the government, the payment would have to be made either by taxpayers' dollars or by printing more money. An increase in taxes means people have less money to spend on the goods and services they choose to spend it on. Printing money increases supply of money, which can cause inflation or decreased purchasing power. If the money people have earned becomes less valuable, their lifestyle may suffer as a result. Mt. Gox was not serving its customers. The company failed to deliver on what they promised. As a result, the company failed. If the company was bailed out, Bitcoin holders may have had to continue to use an ineffective, unsafe product. A bailout could have prevented a new company from entering the market that could provide a more safe or effective service. Yes, it is hard to lose other people's money. That is what they mean by too big to fail. But in the longer term, customers can get better service, and a company that is not effectively serving its customers is removed from the market. When you separate consequences from action, you enable non-rational thinking. If banks believe or know that they will get bailed out if they don't serve their customers, there is no motivation to provide service. If customers believe the bank will be bailed out and that the customers have no risk of losing money, they have no need to qualify the bank and choose the best bank. If customers felt they needed to choose their bank wisely, they would be more inclined to choose the best bank possible. If customers choose the best banks possible will survive and the worst banks will leave the market. When banks become too big to fail, keeping them alive is like putting a band-aid on an amputee. It's like giving a heroin addict more heroin to prevent withdrawal. In the short term, it's less painful than going through withdrawal, but in the long term, it can lead to overdose or only make it harder to withdraw. And it's the detriment of banks' customers, prospective customers, and taxpayers as a whole. The bottom line is that the failure of Mt. Gox may have been a good thing for Bitcoin because the company is removed from the market and new, superior companies are able to enter the market. As a result, customers will get better service, holders of the currency do not have their currency devalued, and citizens aren't penalized or taxed. Chapter 3. How to get Bitcoin. There are three principal ways for anyone to acquire Bitcoins: mining, over-the-counter purchases, and Bitcoin exchanges. Below is a brief description of each method. Number 1. Mining. Most mining is organized through collectives called guilds or through commercial companies set up specifically to mine Bitcoin. An individual can buy shares in such a guild or company. A newer mining option is cloud mining, allowing anyone to pay a company that operates large data centers to mine on their behalf. All of these groups or companies use dedicated and powerful hardware to mine Bitcoin. You may have also heard of mining your own Bitcoins using your own PC or a powerful graphics card. This is now a less viable way to obtain Bitcoin. As the number of Bitcoins remaining to be mined diminishes, the difficulty and energy required also increases. The difficulty and energy required has already increased to such a degree that mining is no longer cost-effective for the individual miner. The cost of the hardware and electricity will likely exceed what you can make back in mined Bitcoin. Number 2. Over-the-counter purchasing. Another way to obtain Bitcoins is to simply purchase them using traditional currency from anyone willing to sell them. An over-the-counter trade with a local seller is arguably the easiest option to acquire Bitcoin. Local Bitcoins is the most popular directory of local sellers and buyers, also providing an escrow service giving both parties increased protection. You may also obtain Bitcoin through a regular face-to-face transaction with a seller. Number 3. Bitcoin exchanges. Bitcoin exchanges are companies that trade Bitcoins between other currencies. Unlike individual sellers, exchanges typically have large stocks of Bitcoin available. What makes exchanges particularly convenient is that they typically offer a range of payment methods. Some of the ways in which you can add funds to an exchange, depending on which exchange you use, include debit or credit card, local or international wire transfer, in-store or in-bank cash deposit, or postal money order. Only a few exchanges accept credit cards, and you will find it impossible to pay for Bitcoins with PayPal. PayPal and credit cards are not commonly accepted because such transactions can be easily reversed through a simple phone call to the intermediary. This is called a chargeback, since it is hard to prove any goods change hands by a transfer in Bitcoins. These payment methods are often avoided by both individual sellers and exchanges. Popular exchanges include Bitcoin Source, Coinbase, Bitstamp, BTC-E, and Cryptsy. You can find exchanges at bitcoinexchangeguide.com, where they are also rated for their overall reputation and trustworthiness. A fourth method of obtaining Bitcoins is to use Bitcoin ATMs, though only a handful of such ATMs currently exist. Experiments with Bitcoin ATMs began in Vancouver, Canada. More Bitcoin ATMs are expected to be installed by different vendors around the world. Only one model of ATM in production will also dispense traditional currency in exchange for Bitcoin. Most Bitcoin ATMs only take cash and exchange this for a receipt with the codes necessary to load the Bitcoins onto your wallet. Storing Bitcoins in a wallet. While you can acquire Bitcoins using any of the aforementioned methods, you can't do so unless you have a place to store them. In Bitcoin terminology, what you need is a so-called wallet. There are two ways to obtain a wallet. Number 1, get a software wallet stored on the hard drive of your computer. Number 2, use an online web-based wallet service. Both options have advantages and disadvantages. If you keep your wallet locally on your computer, it is up to you to ensure you back up your wallet often in case the drive becomes corrupted. Online web wallets take care of this for you, though are potentially vulnerable against hackers. Different online wallet services employ different degrees of security. A popular wallet service is blockchain.info. Another is Coinbase, which will also exchange dollars for Bitcoins. In addition to managing your wallet through their websites, both also provide mobile apps. A wallet has a public key, which you can think of as the equivalent of a bank account number. The public key can be used by other people to send Bitcoins to you. A wallet also has a private key, a password or passphrase, that you use to access it. To transfer Bitcoins to another Bitcoin user, all you need is their public key. Spending Bitcoins. As Bitcoin is still in its infancy, not every business accepts Bitcoin as a form of payment as of yet. However, the list of merchants and services that provide Bitcoin is growing steadily. Since Bitcoin's early adopters were primarily among the tech-savvy crowd, tech-oriented merchants and services were often the first to begin accepting Bitcoin. Similarly, some of the first physical stores and restaurants accepting Bitcoin could be found near Silicon Valley. As Bitcoin gains in popularity, it is becoming accepted in many other areas of business as well. Here are a number of ways in which you can spend Bitcoin. Tipping and donating. Tipping or donating small amounts of money to other internet users or organizations seems to be one of the primary initial use of cryptocurrencies. Other cryptocurrencies, still in their infancy, such as Dogecoin, seem to be used almost exclusively for the purposes of tipping. Bitcoin is also an accepted form of tipping on tech community Reddit.com and used widely there. Some blogs offer Bitcoin tip jars, a feature that is now implemented easily through a number of WordPress plugins. Buying physical goods. A growing number of online merchants accept Bitcoin, in some cases experimentally. The list is short but growing. The determined Bitcoin spender may, in some cases, be choosing a merchant just for the sake of spending them. That said, the list will grow as Bitcoin gains more mainstream acceptance. The following merchants are some of the most notable to accept Bitcoin. Overstock.com offers anything from furniture to electronics. Prices are listed in US dollars, but you will have the option of paying in Bitcoin at checkout. While Overstock offers international shipping to over 100 countries, Bitcoin purchases are currently limited to US buyers. Shopify accepts Bitcoin payment as of 2013. Shopify is a service that lets anyone set up an online e-commerce store, so its inclusion of Bitcoin is a significant step. With over 70,000 online stores running on Shopify, the number of stores accepting Bitcoin is expected to increase. Currently, the number of Shopify shops accepting Bitcoin is in the hundreds. BitcoinShop.us offers a wide range of products, and unlike many other online merchants, it actually lists prices in Bitcoin on its product pages. The company only ships to US customers. BitcoinStore.com sells primarily electronics and ships internationally. Tiger Direct, the online retailer of PCs and consumer electronics, now also accepts Bitcoin payments. Theatre Tickets Direct in the UK has begun accepting Bitcoin, allowing you to purchase tickets mainly for London theatre shows. Numerous smaller online merchants also accept Bitcoin. Sites like CoinMap and usebitcoins.info keep track of these shopping destinations, with new ones being added every month. Bitcoin gift cards. Although major retailers such as Walmart, Home Depot, or Amazon do not currently accept Bitcoin, there is still a way to spend Bitcoin here by way of purchasing gift cards. Many gift card companies accept Bitcoin. For U.S. customers, Gift, GYFT, Gift Card Zen, eGifter, and iTrace BTC are some of the major options. Gift Card BTC is a company specializing in selling Amazon.com gift cards. In Europe, BitCC will exchange Bitcoins for prepaid debit cards. Of course, using such middlemen means you will be paying for their service, but it is currently the only way until major retailers begin accepting Bitcoin directly. Paying for services. A range of companies let you pay in Bitcoin for services. Given Bitcoin's initial popularity among the tech crowd, many of these services are web or tech related. Bitcoin is a popular payment method amongst web hosting companies, for example. WordPress is the most prominent example, being the largest and most used blogging platform on the internet. Need a personal domain to go with your blog? Namecheap accepts Bitcoin directly as payment for internet domains. As with buying gift cards for major merchants, which themselves do not yet accept Bitcoin, you can also buy credits through third parties to use with a variety of online services. Bitcoin codes, for example, can be used to buy credits for Spotify, Xbox Live, Steam, or PlayStation Network. The popular online dating site OkCupid began accepting Bitcoin in mid-2013. Zynga, maker of many popular online games including Farmville, said it would start testing Bitcoin payment for some of its social online games in 2014. Classifieds. While it is still in its infancy, Bitcoin can be used to purchase items from individual sellers. Reddit.com has a subreddit called BitMarket set up for this specific purpose. CryptoThrift and Bitcoin Market are two sites designed specifically for Bitcoin classifieds, though neither has a large user base at this time. BitPremier is a marketplace for high-end luxury items, offering an escrow service for increased buyer and seller protection. Items you will find for sale here include condos, antiques, cars, and even luxury yachts. eBay has expressed interest in Bitcoin, but at the time of this writing, eBay does not yet accept Bitcoin for auction payments. It does, however, allow Bitcoins themselves to be traded in its virtual currency category. Physical establishments. The number of cafes, bars, restaurants, etc. that accept Bitcoins is small but growing. Establishments often accept the cryptocurrency primarily for its novelty and PR value. Sites like Bitcoin.travel and CoinMap keep close track of where you can pay with Bitcoin, pinning establishments to interactive maps for everyone to find. Where it isn't yet possible to pay with Bitcoins directly, once again third parties come to the rescue. Foodler, for example, is a site enabling you to take out meals from over 13,000 restaurants around the world. You can exchange Bitcoins for Foodler credits, which in turn can be spent with any of these restaurants in 3,150 cities worldwide. Chapter 4. Innovation in the Government Industry. There have been advancements in almost all aspects of our lives. For example, the abacus to the calculator, the typewriter to the laptop, the covered wagon to space travel, etc. Almost everything around us has advanced in some way, except for one critical thing: government. We've been using the same political and legal systems for hundreds of years. Government essentially has a monopoly on currency. Our currency only has value because everyone believes it does, and because the government forces us to use it. It's become completely disconnected from gold, which also only has value because people believe it does. Because of its monopoly, the government is able to manipulate its price and limit transactions. There are many risks and potential flaws associated with buying or using Bitcoin, but the idea of essentially competing with government and creating a new currency outside of the control of a third party is very interesting to me. Bitcoin brings into question the widely held assumption that we have to use currency issued by the government to make a transaction. I don't have to tell you how many inefficiencies there are with our political and legal systems, or how many people are dissatisfied with our elected officials. To influence change, we can use ineffective mechanisms like protesting, writing a congressman, voting using a flawed voting system, or just complaining. Monopoly by the government and high barriers to entry for competitors have made it easy for government to remain inefficient. In addition, the government is the only entity that can forcefully take money from people. Customers have the choice to buy products and services from businesses. Not-for-profits are funded by voluntary backers. The right to choose enables companies that are providing a service that customers want to provide that service, and prevents companies that are not providing services that people don't want to continue to do so. Because it's not easy for people to choose which government they want, government has less incentive to innovate and improve its services. If you don't like your job, apartment, accountant, grocery store, etc., you can easily pick up and go somewhere else. The threat of exit induces employers, landlords, store owners, etc. to offer a strong service. Bitcoin adds choice of currency. By adding a choice for currency that is not controlled by government, the government loses bargaining power as the supply for currency increases. Similarly, when a new laundry detergent supply is added to the laundry detergent market, there is more competition. Bargaining power shifts slightly in favor of customers as they now have more choices. Chapter 5. Bitcoin Investment. Should I buy Bitcoin? Before I provide my personal opinion on Bitcoin as an investment opportunity, I wanted to make two disclosures. Number one, I am not an investment advisor. This information is being provided for entertainment purposes only. Number two, as of the publication of this book, I do not own any Bitcoin. This chapter will cover some analysis and key considerations for investing in Bitcoin. Key topics include risks associated with Bitcoin, a discussion of whether or not Bitcoin is in a bubble, and whether or not it makes sense to buy Bitcoin. Determining the price of Bitcoin. How is the value of Bitcoin determined?
Like every other asset in a free market, its value is determined by supply and demand. Supply refers to the amount of the asset that is available for sale. Supply is merely a function of people who own the asset and are offering it for sale. Demand refers to the amount of buyers that are seeking to purchase the asset. Supply and demand changes as changes in price happen. For example, if a soda was priced at $10, there may be less demand for it than when it was priced at $1. In addition, if a soda was priced at $10, more people might start producing soda or selling the soda they have. The increase in supply would lead to price competition between the soda sellers to attract demand. If demand has a choice, it will logically choose the asset that is priced less, all things equal. If one of the soda suppliers lowered its price to $9, it could attract more demand. Bitcoin is no different. It can be bought for as much or as little as someone is willing to sell it for, and it can be sold for as little or as much as someone is willing to pay for it. A buyer generally determines how much it's willing to pay for something based on how much they can expect to earn in return, for example, an investment, how much time or money they can save, for example, a house cleaner, and opportunity cost, for example, going to college versus getting a job. Opportunity cost is what's foregone as a result of spending on a given asset. For example, money invested in one stock could be invested in another that could generate higher return. Time spent working at one job could be spent at another job that pays more or is more fun. A buyer of stock would determine its price based on how much it expects to earn from selling the stock in the future or from dividends it earns while owning it. A buyer of an employee would determine the wage based on how much additional earnings the employee could generate for the company or cost savings the employee could generate for the company. A buyer of soda would determine how much he is willing to pay for a soda based on opportunity cost. For example, if a cab ride was priced at $10 and an equivalent rickshaw ride was priced at $2, it might choose to buy the rickshaw ride instead. If champagne was priced at $10 while a soda was priced at $10, the buyer would have to forego buying champagne if it wanted to buy the soda. If the buyer perceived champagne as having more value than soda, it might purchase the champagne instead. In the case of Bitcoin, it doesn't pay dividends like a stock or bond. It also doesn't have any functional value the way a soda or a piece of aluminum does. Bitcoin has value because other people think it has value. In a way, it is similar to buying artwork or an antique. An antique's value is determined based on opinion. The price of Bitcoin is determined for similar reasons to the price of gold. Gold used to be used as a reserve for currency, but it is no longer. Gold used for some jewelry, functional value, but not a massive amount of it. A lot of gold is bought and sold based on speculation. Opportunity. If Bitcoin was widely used as a currency, it would most likely be priced significantly higher than it is today. It would likely be priced higher because it could only be used as a currency if a lot of people bought it first. The increase in demand for Bitcoin would cause the price to rise. Bitcoin risks. Bitcoin is still a relatively new technology, and there are a lot of potential risks associated with investing in it. Below are some of the biggest risks I see facing Bitcoin as it pertains to become a widely adopted currency. Government regulation. If the government were to make it illegal to own or use Bitcoin, it would likely deter people from doing so. The government's position on Bitcoin is not clear, but it does seem plausible that the government could make it illegal, as the currency is somewhat competitive to government. The government could also try to regulate it and/or tax it the way it does other industries. Depending on the specifics of the regulation, it could potentially make it less attractive to own Bitcoin. Limited adoption. If there are very few people who accept payment in the form of Bitcoin, there would be less incentive to own Bitcoin. If you could use Bitcoin for any purchase the way you can use existing currency, it would be more practical to own. If you can't spend Bitcoin, you would still need to own some other currency. Lack of adoption is a risk. However, more and more consumers and merchants are buying, using, and selling Bitcoin all around the world. Bitcoin has a network effect. Just as some of your friends start using Facebook, you are more likely to start using Facebook, and as more and more of your life and personal data are stored on Facebook, you are less likely to stop using Facebook. Volatility. If you view a chart from Coindesk.com with the date range from November 1st, 2003 to May 25th, 2014, you can see the price has been quite volatile. An important risk factor for the future of Bitcoin is whether it can achieve a stable value. Stable prices are an important quality of successful currency. If prices are too volatile, it becomes risky to own the currency, accept it as a form of payment, etc. Illiquidity. According to Investopedia, liquidity is the degree to which an asset or security can be bought or sold in the market without affecting the asset's price. Liquidity is characterized by a high level of trading activity. Assets that can be easily bought or sold are known as liquid assets. If an asset is liquid, it means it is easy to convert it into cash quickly. For example, large market cap stocks often have very high trading volumes, so you can find a buyer or seller pretty quickly. Conversely, if an asset is illiquid, it is hard to convert it to cash quickly. For example, a house is fairly illiquid. It can take months to find a buyer for a house. Liquid assets are more attractive than illiquid assets, all else being equal. Bitcoin has yet to be widely adopted or traded by the general population. However, Bitcoin exchanges aggregate supply and demand and make it easier to convert between Bitcoin and cash. Safety of supporting products. There are a plethora of products and services that make traditional currency more usable. There are banks for storage and lending, credit card companies, wallets for portability, payment processors, etc. Similar products and services are needed and offered to make Bitcoin more usable. Mt. Gox recently declared bankruptcy, and it led to a lot of public criticism over Bitcoin as a viable currency. However, more and more companies are starting to support the Bitcoin ecosystem. As new firms enter the market, competition forces out the unsafe companies and enables the safe companies to survive and grow. Competition. Other cryptocurrencies could erode Bitcoin's market share. More currencies in the market means more competition and capital spread accordingly. Reaching critical mass could be quite productive for Bitcoin. Competing currencies make it more difficult to do so. There are many other digital currencies or cryptocurrencies, and new ones are being created regularly. The last chapter of this book contains a brief list of some of them. Is Bitcoin a bubble? What is a bubble? An economic bubble is a period where the price of an asset is inflated far beyond the intrinsic value of the asset. Price is equal to the collective market's estimates of intrinsic value. Intrinsic value is equal to the net present value of future cash flow. Cash flow comes in the form of profits, dividends, cost savings, and/or sale. Prices increase as estimates of intrinsic values increase. What causes a bubble? An asset's price, based on estimates of intrinsic value, can increase far beyond intrinsic value as a result of increased expectation of future price, misestimating the inputs to intrinsic value calculations, or market interferences that alter one's evaluation process, opportunity cost, or restrict price from reflecting value. Below are illustrations of these forces. If an investor expects the price of a given stock to rise, the investor may purchase the stock to earn a return. If the investor buys simply because others are buying and expects to be able to sell at a higher price in the future regardless of the asset's intrinsic value, prices can rise beyond intrinsic value. Once investors realize that the price and value are out of sync, they stop buying and/or selling, and prices fall. The bubble bursts. A great example of this is the tulip bubble that occurred in the 1600s. Despite tulips having nearly zero intrinsic value, functional value, or dividends, prices inflated massively as a state of mania occurred. There was widespread belief that the prices would keep rising, so people kept buying expecting to be able to sell them later at higher prices. If an investor overestimates the intrinsic value of an asset, the investor may be willing to pay a price that matches its estimate of intrinsic value, above actual intrinsic value. The intrinsic value of an asset is equal to the present value of future cash flows from the asset. Cash flows come in the form of profits or dividends, or selling the asset. For example, during the dot-com bubble, many investors believed technology companies would generate cash flow in the future, despite in some cases not yet generating revenue. When companies did not become profitable, estimates of intrinsic value decreased, as did price. If price is manipulated by forces other than market forces, the price can become detached from intrinsic value, as price is no longer a function of supply and demand. For example, lowering interest rates. Interest rates can be understood as the price of money. When interest rates are at zero, market players may chase risk because they cannot earn a return by saving it, or might actually face erosion were inflation to lower purchasing power. When money is cheap, many risky investments become more favorable than they would be otherwise because the opportunity cost is lower. A person's belief that they are responsible for the consequences of their own actions is an essential aspect of rational behavior. If one believes that he will lose money from making a bad investment, he will not make that investment. If one does not believe that he will lose money from making a bad investment, he may still make that bad investment. For example, if a hedge fund believed that an asset would be supported by the government to certain prices, or that the hedge fund itself would receive government funding if its investments did not perform well, it could take on more risk. What are the signs of a bubble? It's hard to tell if an asset's price is inflated beyond intrinsic value because it's often difficult to evaluate and forecast intrinsic values. For example, during the dot-com bubble, no one really knew how big technology companies could grow. Bubbles are often identified only in retrospect when a sudden drop in price appears. Signs of a bubble can also be measured qualitatively. When there is a near widespread belief, it can be a sign of a bubble. For example, if every market investor believed a given stock would price significantly, every market investor would buy. The buying would cause the price to rise. Eventually, if everyone bought, there would be virtually no one left to act on the belief and continue to carry the price higher. If the price of the stock were to rise beyond what investors expected the price of the stock to be, it would no longer be profitable to buy that stock. Indications that a widespread belief is held, especially as it pertains to an investment opportunity, would include people with little experience evaluating investment opportunities, recommending the investment, or making the investment. For example, if you ask most people if they think college is a good investment, they will give you a strong yes. If you tell people not to go to college or that it's a bad investment, many people will look at you like you just told a 5-year-old that there's no Santa Claus. Many people believed that housing prices would always go up. Average people were flipping houses. Are we in a Bitcoin bubble? The fact that many people are asking if Bitcoin is a bubble or believe that it is an indication that it's not a bubble. An economic bubble is usually coupled with near universal belief about rising prices. Housing circa the early 2000s and higher education in 2014 provide illustrations of near universal beliefs. There are still only a very limited number of people who don't even know what Bitcoin is, let alone are buying it or believing its price will keep rising. I don't think we are anywhere near universal belief that the price of Bitcoin will continue to rise. Bitcoin still only has minuscule value as compared to global currency. If Bitcoin were to replace a larger percentile of global currency, it would be worth much more than it's worth now. If it were to replace global currency, I can't even guess how much it would be worth. I agree that it only has value because people think it has value, but the US dollar only has value because people think it has value too. Same with gold. Same with antiques. I do believe there is a decent chance that Bitcoin completely collapses and eventually becomes worth close to nothing. That doesn't mean it's currently a bubble. It may mean that price is slightly higher than intrinsic value, but not necessarily. Just because there is a chance that it could become worth nothing doesn't mean it should be priced at nothing. For example, a lottery ticket has a high probability of being worth nothing, but there is a chance that it could be worth millions, so therefore there is some value in taking that chance. There is a high probability that a startup will fail, but because of the potential reward if it is successful, it is worth it to some to start or invest in a startup. Potential Bitcoin investment strategy. As a part of a large, diversified portfolio, my personal opinion is that Bitcoin could make for an attractive investment opportunity. A large diversified portfolio would have investments in many different assets and asset classes. Diversification reduces risk. If you own too much of one asset, your overall returns are significantly dependent on the performance of that asset class. If you own only one asset and that asset loses value, your overall portfolio will lose the equivalent value. If you own that asset along with 10 other assets that perform well, your portfolio would not be as negatively affected by the first asset's losses. If the other 10 assets perform significantly well, it could outweigh the losses of the poor-performing assets. I think Bitcoin has a small chance of becoming a widely transacted currency. If it were to become a widely accepted currency, I expect Bitcoin's price would rise significantly as a result of the increased demand. While I don't think Bitcoin has a high probability of becoming a widely demanded currency, its upside potential makes it a worthwhile risk. An analogy that can be used to illustrate my thinking behind this is roulette. In roulette, correctly betting that the wheel will stop on a red square will result in your bet amount doubling. For example, if you bet $10 that the wheel will stop on black, and the wheel stops on black, the dealer will award you $10. There is a slightly less than 50% chance that the roulette wheel will stop on black. There is a slightly less than 50% chance that the roulette wheel will stop in red. The chances are less than 50% because traditional roulette wheels have 1 or 2 green squares. Because there is a less than 50% chance that the wheel will stop on black, and because the reward if the wheel stops on black is equal to 100%, it is not a wise investment to bet on black. Over time, per basic probability, the bettor will lose money. That's how casinos make money. If betting on black correctly were to yield, say, 200%, a bet on black would be a wise choice. It would be a wise choice because the returns generated that were made correctly would make up for the losses as a result of betting incorrectly were probabilities to hold true over time. In venture capital, a small percentage of investments make up for a significant portion of most funds' returns. Venture capital firms typically make very risky investments, with hopes of a small number of them becoming successful enough to outweigh the losses that a large number of investments will yield. In this sense, Bitcoin fits into a venture capital investor's profile. It has a small probability of being successful, but if it is successful, it could produce a tremendous amount of return. With Bitcoin, the potential upside in the case of currency becoming widely adopted make it a worthwhile investment. What's the difference between a bet and an investment? In my opinion, nothing. I believe the words could be used interchangeably. The outcomes of both an investment, for example buying a stock, and a bet, are dependent on some probability. Bottom line, it is my personal opinion that Bitcoin has a small chance of becoming priced significantly higher than it is today. While the chance is small, the upside is high enough that it is worth making the investment. This is very similar to betting on a startup. Because I believe the chance is so small, I would not want to have a significant portion of my wealth in Bitcoin. I would invest a small percentage of my wealth in Bitcoin. I would not try to buy and sell it like a day trader. Because of Bitcoin's price volatility, I would not want to take that risk. Instead, I would buy it and hold it as a long-term investment. Chapter 6. Bitcoin Startups. Below is a brief list of some companies operating within the Bitcoin market. The list is not exhaustive. The categories of companies include payment processors, wallets, exchanges, mining hardware, borrowing and lending, and ATMs. Payment processors. Circle, according to their website, makes Bitcoin easy to use, instant, secure, and free. BitInstant is a payment processor serving Bitcoin exchanges. BitPay is a payment processor providing for merchants around the world. BIPS is a payment processing solution for merchants in Europe. BitPagos is a payment service provider for merchants in Latin America. Payment networks. Ripple Labs is a distributed payment network. As a decentralized and open-source global payment network, Ripple Labs enables free and instant payments with no chargebacks and in any currency, including Bitcoin. Exchanges. LocalBitcoins.com is a decentralized exchange for people to buy and sell Bitcoin. Mt. Gox, based in Tokyo, Japan, was one of the largest Bitcoin exchanges. The company recently announced bankruptcy. Bitstamp is a European Union-based Bitcoin marketplace. Coinsetter is a New York-based trading platform that aggregates trades on major exchanges. Kraken is a trading platform for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Coinable is a Bitcoin to gold and silver exchange. Bitbox is a California-based Bitcoin exchange. ICBIT is a Sweden-based exchange enabling Bitcoin futures trading. Payward/Kraken is a Forex trading program that serves Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. According to TechCrunch, the company raised a Series A round of financing in March of 2014. Buttercoin is a United States-based trading platform backed by Google Ventures. VAURUM enables financial institutions like banks to trade, store, and offer Bitcoin to their customers. Hardware and equipment. Mining. Butterfly Labs is a Bitcoin mining hardware company that manufactures a line of high-speed ISIC Bitcoin miner and encryption processors for use in Bitcoin mining hardware and research. Avalon offers hardware for mining Bitcoins. Hashfast Technologies is a semiconductor company specializing in Bitcoin mining chips and machines. ATMs. Lamisol Bitcoin Ventures offers a one-way machine that allows you to transfer cash to Bitcoin. RoboCoin offers a machine that allows buying and selling of Bitcoin. Bitcoin ATM exchanges Bitcoin to the local currency and vice versa. Hardware wallets. Bitcoin Card is a credit-sized media device. Trezor is a handheld Bitcoin safe. Borrowing and lending. Bitbon.net connects small business borrowers and lenders. BitLending Club is a peer-to-peer Bitcoin lending network with a Dutch auction feature. BTC Jam is a peer-to-peer Bitcoin lending and borrowing network. Wallets. Strongcoin offers safe Bitcoin storage. The website states 50,000 people are using it. Bitcoin Armory is an open-source Bitcoin wallet management platform. According to their website, it's taking Bitcoin security and usability to the next level. CoinJar is a company based in Australia that helps customers manage and keep digital currency safe. Coinbase is a free web and Android wallet with payment processing ability for merchants. With international research, Coinbase allows people to securely buy, use, and accept Bitcoin currency. Coinbase is backed by Union Square Ventures, Andreessen Horowitz, and more. Easy Wallet is a web-based Bitcoin wallet. Chapter 7. Other cryptocurrencies. In wake of the rising popularity of Bitcoin, many new cryptocurrencies have been created. Below is a partial list. You can learn more about these cryptocurrencies and view a more exhaustive list on Wikipedia. Number 1. Namecoin is a decentralized open-source information registration and transfer system based on the Bitcoin cryptocurrency. It was launched in April of 2011. Number 2. Litecoin, according to its website, is a peer-to-peer internet currency that enables instant, near-zero-cost payments to anyone in the world. Litecoin is an open-source, global payment network that is fully decentralized without any central authorities. Mathematics secures the network and empowers individuals to control their own finances. Number 3. Dogecoin, according to its website, is a decentralized peer-to-peer digital currency that enables you to easily send money online. Number 4. Peercoin, according to its website, is a decentralized network allowing peer-to-peer financial transactions worldwide over the internet. Through an innovative minting algorithm, the Peercoin network consumes far less energy, maintains stronger security, and rewards users in more sustainable ways than other cryptocurrencies. Conclusion. Bitcoin challenges the commonly held notion that currency must be controlled by a central government or authority and that all transactions must pass through an intermediary of some kind. Having controlling authorities or intermediaries poses moral questions about liberty and can potentially cause harm, for example, inflation that devalues the currency. Bitcoin, as a decentralized currency, enables a more democratic currency, free from dictation and regulation. As a digital currency and open-source technology, Bitcoin presents the opportunity for a more efficient and cost-effective payment system native to the internet. There are weaknesses and risk, but it's amazing to see that developers and entrepreneurs are building products to solve these problems. In some cases, the products and services are equivalent to what governments provide to enable traditional currencies. Bitcoin is still a very new technology. Were it to expand widely, it could have a significant impact on the economy, the internet, and government. If you enjoyed this